Kadosh Boker Or Masechet Menachot Daf Yomi Daf Bet Amud Aleph 2A1. Please pay attention to the Mishnah. The Mishnah is talking about Kol HaMenachot. We know that there's different types of Menachot. Meal offerings, flour offerings. I don't know how they actually translated there. What's better, meal or flour? No, in English. How does it translate it? How does it translate it there? Kol Menachot. How's it translated? Meal offerings or flour offerings? Menachot. Okay. So mincha offerings. Okay, that sounds good, right? Shenikmetzu shelo lishman. So we're talking about different menachot. Now they did the kmitza shelo lishma. Kshirot. It's still going to be kosher. Okay. Ela, but rather shelo alula be'alim l'shem chova. But they were not going to be tzedek chova for their mincha. Which means that, again, obviously, that means basically, one more time, they did the kmitza. Kmitza is when they come and they do like this with the flour. So they do that. When they do that, it's still kosher. It wasn't done lishma. It wasn't done lishma. Right? But it says, but it's not alul ba'alim l'shem chova. Chutz, except for minchat chote or minchat knaot. The minchat chote, minchat knaot, is going to be pasul legamre, if it was done shelo lishma. Minchat chote is going to be when you have an ani, that he did three different averot, right, which is korban ole v'yored. You remember we said that when you have a korban ole v'yored, which basically you would have to bring a chatat. It's not a chatat kevua, because if it was a chatat kevua, then it's only an animal in the gamarnu. This is a korban ole v'yored. Ole v'yored means according to how much money do you have, what do you bring? Do you bring the animal? Do you bring the birds? Or are you going to bring the menachot? So the person, for example, right? Adam shekafar lechavero b'shvuat ha'edut. He comes and he says, I don't know any testimony about you, right? Or, for example, mitameh mikdash v'kodashav. He comes into the Bet HaMikdash when he's tameh, by accident, obviously, or he ate kodesh, right, when he was tameh. Or shvuat bitui. He comes and he swears falsely. On all these three averot, there's something which is called a korban olev yored. So this is called a minchat chote. Minchat chote means a minchat avachet. So therefore, you would bring a chatat. So minchat chote or minchat knaot. What's minchat knaot? It's very easy to know. Jealousy. So what is that referring to?
1 second. The tahmud.
Yeah. Sota. The sota brings a minchat knaot. It's written in the Torah. Yeah. So therefore, when the sota, that means except for minchat chote and minchat knaot, it's pasul legamre. If they did not do the kmitza, shelo, right, shelo lishma. Of course. Yeah. Yes, kulam, the kol menachot. It's a mincha.
What we're going to talk about is the flour.
Yeah, the different korbanot. The korbanot. Yeah.
רגע, להבין, שזה רק flowers?
מה זה? The next part of the Mishnah says, minchat chote uminchat knaot shekematzan shelo lishman. Right? Natan bekli. Right? So, for example, you already have this minchat chote, minchat knaot, that you did kmitza, which was shelo lishma. Now, what do we say when it's shelo lishma? That it's pasul, correct? That's what we just said. We just said 2 seconds before that it becomes pasul. Those are the only two things that become pasul. Right? Natan bekli, if you put it in a kli sharet, ve'alach, and then you went and you took it, v'iktir, and you brought it to the mizbeach, shelo lishman, or lishman, or you did one of these avodot lishman, v'shelo lishman. So that means during the time of it, you said, I'm going to do this part of it lishma, the other part not lishma, or shelo lishma lishman, or not lishma and lishma. So now in all these cases, because remember, you did alicha and then you did haktara. So now there are two different cases. So it's haktara, you're bringing it on the mizbeach. The alicha is the transporting. Which one? Which one? Why mizbeach? No. He says like this. He says, right? He says, in any of these cases, because again, you've got the alicha and then you have the ktara, right? And you've got the lish, or right, you've got the different cases, whether it's going to be shelo lishma or lishma shelo lishma. So in all these cases, you're going to be psulot. You're going to be pasul. Okay, fine. Now he comes and he says like this: Ketzad lishman v'shelo lishman. What is the lishman v'shelo lishman? So he comes and he says, for example, if you're going to bring a minchat choteh, that you did a l'shem minchat choteh or l'shem minchat nedava. So, for example, if you brought it as a minchat choteh and as a minchat nedava, right? That is called lishman v'shelo lishman, because the minchat choteh was the lishma, and minchat nedava was the shelo lishma. Nedava, right? He says if it's going to be shelo lishman lishman, that you brought it as a minchat nedava and as a minchat choteh. Okay. Now, obviously, the Gemara is going to explain, right? What exactly are we talking about? Okay. Fine. So let's start. 1 minute. Questions afterwards. Yeah, we're going to say like this. Okay. Says the Gemara. Lama li lemitna, right? Ella. In the beginning of the Mishnah, we said all the menachot that you did kemitzah shelo lishma is kosher. Correct? That's what we said. Except for, right? It did not fulfill their owners of their obligation. Okay? Until you were clear? One more time. It's kosher, but they have to do it again. Well, yeah, they did it shelo lishma. They did kmitzah shelo lishma. They do kmitzah shelo lishma. It's kosher, but you have to do it again. So again, kosher means that they're allowed to finish the mincha, they're allowed to do everything, they're allowed to eat everything that you want, but they have to do it again. They weren't yitzei chova. Fine. So now we said, right, as follows, right, except for 2 exceptions to the rules. That's what the Mishnah said. It was minchat choteh, minchat ktanot. Other than that, all the other ones is going to be okay. So now he comes and he says like this, right? He says, why is it that we learned in the Mishnah, Ella shelo alu ba'alim shem chova, litni velo alu ba'alim shem chova? Just say, they did not. What is the Ella? When you come and you're saying that usually the Mishnah is usually mekatzer, right? So therefore, right, the Gemara is going to explain, right? Just say, velo alu ba'alim l'shem chova. Why does it say Ella? So the Gemara answers, hakamash malan, right?
We can imagine that it's valid for everything.
No. But you should just, instead of using the terminology ella, use the terminology lo, right? So he says, hakamash malan, comes teach you, lebe'alimu de lo alu l'shem chova. It's not going to be, right, l'shem chova for the be'alim. Ha mincha gufa keshera. But the mincha itself is going to be kosher. Ve'asur l'shanuye. Right? Now you're not allowed to come and to change something, which means, right? What happens right now, a person might have thought, listen, I already started shelo lishma. So if I started shelo lishma, maybe now I could come and I could put it in not a kli sharet, or I could do it with something else, or I could put it in the kli shelo lishma, or I could do anything. He says, no. Ella. What is the Ella teaching us? That it's 100% kosher, except for one lacking. What is that lacking? It's not going to be Yitzhak Chovah the Baalim. Other than that, it's 100% kasher. Meaning sometimes a person thinks, you know what, it's already not kosher, so just finish everything else not kosher. No. This is 100% kosher. It's just a technical issue. You're not Yitzhak Chovah. So if you brought it, you're not going to say Chovah. Yeah? So fine. But that's it. And
You have to repeat it.
What was your Yitzhak Chovah? Yeah?
It's still kosher?
Yes, that's what exactly we're saying. It's kasher. Right?
Is it only for these 2 exceptions?
Which 2 exceptions? So says the Gemara, Kedrava, like Rava. Da'amar Rava, because Rava comes and he says, Ola sheshechata shelo lishma. When you have a korban ola, that you do shechita shelo lishma. Yeah? So one more time, you have an ola, that you do shechita shelo lishma. Asur lizrok dama shelo lishma. Okay, so when you have an olah, you do the shechita shelo lishma. It's a sur to sprinkle the blood, also shelo lishma. Now he says, why? That means basically, again, this is against the svara, that if I already did it, if it's already pasul, so that's it. He said, no. It's 100% kosher. So therefore, if you do an olah, you do the shechita shelo lishma, you're not allowed to sprinkle the blood shelo lishma. So he says, ibai tema svara, ibai tema.
Sprinkle the blood for the other korban that you bring?
No, so that's what we're saying. It's a sur. That's what we're saying. It's a sur. You have to do it for an olah. Yeah. Basically this. I came and I brought the olah, and I brought it for khatat. I don't know what. And all of a sudden I said, you know what? The blood. I'm also going to bring it out as an asham. No. He's saying it has to be lishma. So ibaite masvara, ibaite makra. If you want, you could say it's a pasuk, and if you want, you could say it's a svara. We're going to start with the svara first. Ibaite masvara. What is a svara? Mishum de meshani ba, because you changed it once. Kol hani lishane ba venezil. So what? Continue changing with everything else? Meaning the svara is okay, fine. You changed once, but now you're going to change completely. Imagine you're a painter, right? And you went once off a little bit. So now what? You're going to go the entire painting off? No, you try to get back to it. And okay, so you made a little tiny mistake over here. Fine, but you're not going to go completely off everything else because you changed one thing, right? That's going to be the svara. Or if you want, you could say there's a pasuk. What's the pasuk? The pasuk says, "Motza sefatecha tishmon, ve'asita kasher nadarta laHashem Elokecha nedava." What does that mean? You have to be shomer, right? What comes out of your lips, right? Motza sefatecha, what comes out of your lips, tishmor, you have to watch. Ve'asita, and you have to do kasher nadarta, just like what you made a neder to Hashem Elokecha nedava. So now the Gemara says, 1 second, what does it mean now nedava? Right? You said kasher nadarta. What is nadarta? What's a neder? A neder. Everyone knows what a neder is, correct? Neder is a promise, right? So nedava. So what does it mean there? Kasher nadarta l'Hashem lokecha nedava. Explain to me. Is it neder or nedava? Translate. So the Gemara says, neder hu. It's a neder. It's not a nedava. So what's going on there? You said kasher nadarta. So kari le neder. So 1 second. I'm very confused. You're calling it 1 second a neder. You're calling it another second a dava. So what's the explanation? Ella, but rather, how are you supposed to be duresh the pasuk? Im kemash nadarta asita. If you did it exactly the way that you made the neder, meaning you came and you brought the korban exactly the way that it was supposed to be. Yeah, neder. So it's going to be a neder. Vim lav. Now, if it's that you didn't do it that form, yeah, nedava. It should be a nedava. And therefore, it's not going to be like your neder. So therefore, you're not going to the chovah. So from here, though, we learn that you're not allowed to change anything else. Because you're right. You right now, you didn't do your neder. Which means that you weren't the chovah. Which means you're going to have to bring another one. Fine. But not because but it's still a nedava. I'm going to ask you a question. If you bring a nedava of a korban mincha, I cannot change it to something else. It has to still be brought the way that it is. So I cannot change, right, the way that I'm doing the korban to something else because I went off in one place. Okay? Says the Gemara, right? Bet amud bet, to be. V'nedava mishari l'shanuyeba. He says, 1 second. And in a nedava, I am allowed to bring it, shelo lishma. Meaning, because we were mashma that it's only a neder. Because you had to bring it as a neder, right? This is your neder that you brought. And if you brought it as your neder, this is going to be good. Or if you brought it as a nedava, no. He says, what? A nedava, you are allowed to change? You're allowed to do it, all these things, right? So therefore, just like a nedava also, right? You have to do it lishma. So to the same thing, you have to do it lishma. So therefore, the fact that this became a nedava and not your neder, why did it become a nedava? Because you didn't do it the way that was supposed to be. So if you didn't do it the way that was supposed to be, so it wasn't an neder. So what is it? It's an nedava, but you're not allowed to change a nedava either. So if you're not allowed to change a nedava, so therefore, right, it's not going to help. So says the Gemara, Lema matnitin delo keRabbi Shimon. So why don't we just say that our Mishnah then is not like Rabbi Shimon, right? So he says the Tanya, because we learned in a Braita, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says. So one more time. Remember that many times we have a Mishnah and we want to find out who's the Mishnah going like. So what we're trying to say right now is, right, is he says, why don't we say that our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Shimon? Now, why? Let's try to understand. The Tanya, as we learned in a Braita, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, Kol ha-menachot shenikmetzu shelo lishman kesherot ve'alu labe'alim l'shem chovah. Here, Shitat Rabbi Shimon at the beginning is like our Mishnah, that it's Kishirot, but here where it's not, where he says that it's Alul Ba'alim L'Shem Chovah. Meaning, according to Shitat Rabbi Shimon, even though you changed and you did it Shelo Lishma, you are still Yotze Yede Chovah. Yeah, that is Rabbi Shimon. So obviously, right, he says our Mishnah cannot be like Rabbi Shimon, because Rabbi Shimon here says Mefurash, Alul Ba'alim L'Shem Chovah, and we said in our Mishnah, Shelo Alu. So he says, She'en menachot domot lezvachim. You just heard me. Menachot is not domet to zvachim. Yeah? Why? Yeah, right? Why? See, 1 second. So he says, she'ena menachot domot lezvachim. Menachot are not compared to zvachim. Why? Shakometz machavat leshum marcheshet. Because if you right now did the machavat instead of the marcheshet, right? Remember that in the menachot, there's different types of menachot. Remember all these type of things where they were like made into different, fried differently. So there's called a machavat, which is like, if you want to call it literally a frying pan, and then you have the marcheshet, right? I don't know how they actually translate in English each one of these things, you know. Like I don't know if they just are going to just tell you it's a machvat and marcheshet. I don't know, but whatever. But basically, what he's trying to say. Marcheshet. So each one of them is a different type of a mincha, the way that it's prepared. Okay, so now he's saying like this: shekometz machavat leshum marcheshet maaseha mochechin alea shi machvat. Meaning, if you did right now the machvat and you're doing it for a marcheshet, yeah, but the fact that you're doing it in a machvat, so therefore you know that the action is meaning it's a different action. It's not the same. By a zevach, right? All of them you do shchita, correct? By zvachim, you come, you do shchita. All of them you have to do shchita. We're not talking about birds that you do melika, but all of them is the same shchita. Now you're right. There's a process that some of them shchita batzafon, which is going to be the chatat ola nasham koche kodashim. Some of them are going to be in Darom, but that's the place. But the action is the same. You're doing shchita. Every one of them has holacha. Holacha is you're coming, you're transporting the blood, or before the kabbalat adam, right? Menachot is different because of the way that you prepare, right? The way that you prepare the mincha. So he says chareva. Chareva is basically dry, which means that there's no shemen at all. Usually you would put oil in it, right? Here, this one chareva is mamash. So that leshum belula, right? That means if you're going to do the chareva, which is without oil, for a belula is the one that you do with oil. Because remember, balul b'shemen katitra belila. When you come and you so maaseh mochina leashi chareva, meaning if you're doing it right, the actions are showing you that you're doing it for the chareva. Aval bezvachim enokem, but zvachim it's not the same. Why? Shechita achat lekulan. It's all the same type of shechita. It's not like I'm telling you, listen, shchita by ola is different than a shchita by a chatat, and shchita by a chatat is different. It's the same salam shows. It's or you're different exactly different knives. It's all the same. Zrika achat lekulan. All the zrika is the same by all. You're coming and you're sprinkling. Whether it's going to be okay, so you're right. Sometimes you're going to come and you're going to do sprinkling. Matanachat shemed right. Right? Kabbalah achat lekulan. And it's all one Kabbalah for all of them. So therefore, right, we see from here though that Rabbi Shimon is machshir 100% the shelo lishma. So therefore, what we're learning here in our Mishnah, obviously, right, is that what? Is that obviously it's not Rabbi Shimon. So if I'm going to ask you, is our Mishnah Rabbi Shimon? Obviously not, because he permits completely. But he says you can never compare zivachim to menachot. Menachot and zivachim. Very good. Menachot, you've got it. Chazak u'baruch. So says the Gemara, yeah, that now what we're going to say is that this is all talui. 1 second. So this is now going to be right dependent upon the shita of Rabbi Shimon. Hani chale Ravashi, right? This is good according to Ravashi, right? The Amar that he's going to say that there's going to be a stira between Rabbi Shimon and the Braita and another Braita. Kan, because in the first Braita, when Rabbi Shimon says that it's going to be kosher, right? Shelo lishma bekometz machvat leshum marcheshet. That it's talking about where you wanted to do the kometz of a machvat and you wanted to do it as a marcheshet. Now, he didn't mention the machshevet hashinui in the lashon of the mincha. Kan, the other Braita, where Rabbi Shimon does say the machshevet shelo lishma is pogem the mincha, is bekometz minchat machvat leshum minchat marcheshet. So according to this, right, we could say that our Mishnah is according to Rabbi Shimon, right? What does that mean? Beforehand, right, you have to remember there's a mincha. Mincha is how did they call it? Okay, they called it a mincha offering. So fine, mincha offering. in the mincha offering, you have different types, correct? We had the, how many did you say over there? We had the marcheshet, the chareva, we had the machvat, we had the rikikim, we had the, a whole bunch of different types. Yeah, you have a whole different, right? So fine. So now, when we're going to come and we're going to mention the different types of the menachot, each one is included in the category of a mincha. But what happens if at the beginning you actually mentioned that you were doing it for a minchat machavat or a minchat marcheshet, right? So he comes and he says like this. He says, exactly. So he comes and he says like this. He says, right, when does Ravashi comes and he paskin in Rabbi Shimon that it's going to be kosher is only if you didn't mention the mincha. You just did the kmitza and you said, I'm doing a l'shem marcheshet, or you're doing a l'shem machavat, or you're doing a l'shem that. So therefore, in that case, it's not considered a shinui in the mincha, because it's still a mincha. You said that it was going to be a mincha marcheshet instead of mincha machavat. Or you said, yeah, but you didn't change the mincha. It's a mincha. You just said, I'm doing it for a marcheshet. But is it a mincha? Yes, it's a mincha. Mincha marcheshet. Are you doing a machavat? But is it? Yes, it's still a mincha. Fine. What happens though if you actually said that I'm doing it as a minchat marcheshet or a minchat machavat? Here, it does help that it changes it, and therefore you're not going to be tzedek chovah. Meaning, Ravashi comes. One second. So therefore, Rabbi Shimon could be our Mishnah. But one second. So one more time. According to Shitat Ravashi, Ravashi comes and he says like this. When do I say that according to Rabbi Shimon you're going to be tzedek chovah? If you still kept the main category and you only changed the subcategory, but since the action is going to still dictate that it's still the same one, it's still kosher. So, what's the category? Mincha. What's the subcategory? Marcheshet, machavat, rikikim, whatever it is. Okay, that's the subcategory. What's the action? When even though I did the kmitza shelo lishma because I did it for a machavat, but then afterwards I still did it like a marcheshet, or I still did that. So therefore, it's still 100% kosher. Why? Because I still have the I still have the category, which is a mincha, and I still have the action. And the action is teaching me that what I still did was okay. Now all of a sudden, says Ravashi, what happens if I change the entire thing? Because I didn't call it a marcheshet, or I didn't call it a machavat. I called it a minchat marcheshet, or I called it a minchat machavat. In such a case, when I did not leave the category fixed, and then I only changed the subcategory, but I actually changed everything together. Because I called it a minchat marcheshet, I called it a minchat machavat. In such a case, he comes and he says, they're not going to be tzedek chovah. So now, according to this, right, what are we going to say then? So now we could still say that Rabbi Shimon is a Mishnah. Why? Matniti mincha leshu minchahi, right? Which means our Mishnah was talking about, right, that you did it, that you said minchat marcheshet, or minchat, whatever it was. So therefore, if you did the minchat, so even according to Rabbi Shimon, you're not going to say chovah, because you changed the category. You changed the minchat. So therefore, our Mishnah could still be Rabbi Shimon. Ela, but according to Rabba ve'Rava, ma'ikale meimar. But according to Rabba and Rava, what are you going to say? Right? Why? Rabba and Rava, they said a different answer in how to explain Rabbi Shimon, which we're going to see right now, because we didn't see it yet, obviously. So they're going to explain differently. So according to them, what can you say? Because again, according to Ravashi, it's good. Rabbi Shimon could still be our Mishnah. What is our Mishnah talking about? When it says that you're not Yotzei Chovah, when you change the category, the top category. You changed everything. You said minchat marcheshet, minchat machavat. And then when you change the entire thing, you're not Yotzei Chovah, even according to Rabbi Shimon.
So basically, Rabbi Shimon says that if...
So says the Gemara. Let's see now Rabba and also according to Rava. So it says, V'chi teima. Now if you're going to tell me, Kidekameshani Rabba, right? What about, let's see about Rabba. What was Rabba's way, how to interpret Rabbi Shimon? He says, Kan, the first Braita, where Rabbi Shimon says that it's going to be kosher. We're talking about, right, Shinui Kodesh. Right? What does that mean? We're talking about where you changed what was the korban, whether it was going to be for a minchat machvat, minchat marcheshet. The second braita, where he says that it's going to be pogem, is shinui be'alim. Okay? So for example, I change it from Reuven to Shimon, right? So therefore, one more time. The second answer. One braita says you're Yitzhak Chuvah. One braita says you're not Yitzhak Chuvah. So the one that says, the braita that comes and it says that you're going to be kosher is talking about where you did Shinui Kodesh. You change the actual korban, minchat, cheshet, minchat machavat. You're Yitzhak Chuvah. The braita that says you're not going to do Yitzhak Chuvah is that you change the baalim, you change the owners, Reuven and Shimon. So therefore, according to this, our Mishnah is talking about Shinui Baalim, right? Why? So Hamatnitin, right? Shinui Kodeshem, who? Diktani, Keitzad Lishman, Veshelo Lishman, Leshum Mincha Chote, right? Veleshum Minchat Nedava. Meaning, if I wanted to answer that it was talking about, right, Shinui Baalim, it's not correct. Our Mishnah, was it talking about Shinui Kodesh or Shinui Baalim? Shinui Kodesh. How do you know? So the Mishnah never spoke about that you changed it from Reuven to Shimon, Shimon to Yehuda. Our Mishnah was talking about that you did it for one thing for another thing, right? So therefore, says the Gemara one more time. According to Rabbi, there's a stira in Rabbi Shimon. There's two braitot in Rabbi Shimon. One place in Rabbi Shimon it says that it's going to be kosher, even though you changed. Another, and it's going to be Yitzhak Chovah, but that's the main part. Everyone holds that it's kosher, even the Mishnah says kosher. Right, but you're going to be Yitzhak Chovah the Baalim. The second one says you're not going to be Yitzhak Chovah Baalim. According to the first answer of Ravashi, the answer was, did you change the category and subcategory? The second answer of Rabbah is no. He says, did you change Kodesh or Baalim? If you changed Kodesh, that means I did Minchat Marcheshet instead of Minchat Machava, Minchat Machavat instead of Rekikima. It's always kosher, and you're going to be Yitzhak Chovah. That's the way that he learns. That's Rabbah with a hey, right? But when do we say you're not going to be Yitzhak Chovah? If you change the Baalim. From Reuven to Shimon, Shimon to Yehuda, when you change the owners, they're not going to be Yitzhak Chovah. So says the Gemara, Hamatznitin, our Mishnah is Shinui Kodeshu. Right? Why? Diktani Keitzel Lishman V'Shelo Lishman. L'Shum Mincha Chotel, L'Shum Mincha Nedava. So therefore, obviously, the Mishnah, right, was not, right, according to Rabbah and Rabbi Shimon. Right? One more time. Rabbah and Rabbi Shimon. Rabbah comes and he explains, according to Rabbi Shimon, if it's going to be Shinui Kodesh, it's going to be kosher and you're instead of Chovah. Which means if you change from Machavat to Marcheshet to this, to that, it's always going to be kosher and you're going to be Yitzhak Chovah. When are you not Yitzhak Chovah? The changing of the owners. Reuven to Shimon, right? One to another. So he says, our Mishnah, what are we referring to? Shinui Kodesh. So if our Mishnah is talking about Shinui Kodesh, which means that we're changing from a Machvat to a Marcheshet or whatever it is, so therefore what? So therefore, obviously, he says that it cannot be Rabbi Shimon, because by us, we just answered according to Rabbah, you're going to be Yitzhak Chovah, and it's going to be kosher, and you're going to be Yitzhak Chovah. And our Mishnah said, you're not going to be Yitzhak Chovah. So our Mishnah cannot be according to Rabbi Shimon in Rabbah with a hey. Clear? Okay. Next, Rava with an aleph. Ve'inami kamishani Rava. So let's see Rava now with an aleph. Kan bekometz mincha leshum mincha. Kan bekometz mincha leshum zevach. He says the first braita where it says that it's going to be kosher, even though it's not lishma, we're talking about that you're doing it from one mincha to another mincha. The case where Rabbi Shimon says that you're not going to the Chotzovah is where you're doing the mincha for a korban of a behemah. Yeah, which means that when you're doing it from one to another, you're going to be Yitzhak Chovah because it's all mincha. It's all Torah achat lechol menachot. They're all one Torah for all the different menachot. Okay? So he says it's all going to be one menach, right, for all the menachot. So he says, okay, here though, once you're doing it as a korban, right, so now it doesn't help anymore. Because he says, Hamatznitin, so therefore our Mishnah is a mincha l'shum minchahi, right? So therefore, obviously, we're not talking about that you did the mincha for a zevach, for a korban of a behemah. So therefore, if we're not talking about for a korban of a behemah, so therefore, obviously what's happening is the what? Obviously, our Mishnah cannot be in accordance to Rabbi Shimon according to Rava. So, Ela le Rabba ve'Rava machvarta matnitin delok Rabbi Shimon. So you're right. According to Rabba and Rava, our Mishnah has to be not like Rabbi Shimon. Verami de Rabbi Shimon de Rabbi Shimon. So we're going to ask the stira between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Shimon. The Tanya, as we learned in a Braita. Rabbi Shimon Omer. Rabbi Shimon comes and he says, Kodesh Kadashim hi kachatat v'cha'asham. It's a Kodesh Kadashim like a chatat and like an asham. What does that mean? Yesh mehen kachatat, yesh mehen ka'asham. He says some of them are like a chatat and some of them are like an asham. How does that work exactly? Meaning the Torah's mekish, the mincha, to a chatat and an asham. Now, what? There's menachot, which are going to be like a chatat, and then menachot, like are going to be like an asham. How does it work? So he says like this: minchat chote is like a chatat, and therefore kematzah shelo lishma pesula kechatat. Minchat nedava harei keasham lefichach kematzah shelo lishma keshera. Okay, v'ka'asham. Now, what does it mean now when it says ka'asham? Ma'asham kasher ve'eno menatzeh. Just like the asham is going to be kosher and it's not going to be menatzeh, af minchat nedava is going to be keshera ve'eno menatzeh, and it's not going to be menatzeh. Okay, asham. Okay, so one more time. So the Gemara is going to explain. Certain menachot are going to be like a chatat. Certain menachot are going to be like the asham. Minchat chote, right? Which we already said was the korban chatat, which is olev yored. So therefore, obviously, he did it by accident, and he should have brought an animal. The problem is he's very poor, so he didn't even bring the birds. He comes and he's bringing the flower, this mincha offering. When he's bringing this mincha offering, which is korban olev yored, so this is the yeridah, this is the going down. When he's going to bring this, what's going to happen? He's going to bring this. So if he brings this and he does the kmitzah shelo lishma, right? What happens? It's like a chatat. And therefore, it's going to be like a chatat that you're not going to do the right? And therefore, it's going to be pasul, right? He says, however, though, the minchat nedava is like an asham. What does that mean? It's going to be like an asham that if you do the kmitzah shelo lishma, it's kosher. It's not like a chatat. A chatat is not kosher. It's pasul. Here, it's kosher, but it's going to be that you're not going to do the chuvah. And that's exactly what we're talking about until now. Okay? So now, right, what happens is there's going to be three answers, right? There's going to be three different answers to this stira. Okay, there's going to be three answers. Amar Rabba. Rabba comes and he says, number one, lakashia. It's not a question. Kan beshinui kodesh, kan beshinui be'alim. He comes and he says like this. He says, here we're talking about shinui kodesh, which means that there's going to be a shinui, right, in the kodesh in itself, right? And therefore, he holds that it's not going to help to be pogem in the mincha. Vekan b'shinui ba'alim. And here the second right that we're talking about, that it's going to be shinui ba'alim. And therefore, right, that's when he is going to be modeh, that it's going to be pogem the mincha. Okay? So Amaleh Abaye comes and he says, right? So by the way, I don't know if you realize what we did until now. We started the Gemara, and the Gemara just asked at the beginning, why is it that we started with Ella? You should have just said Lo, and we came and we gave you the Chidush. So the Chidush is that even though it already became Pasul, right? Or not become Pasul, even though you changed something, it doesn't mean that you're going to make everything else Pasul. You just continue going in the kosher way, right? And we continue going from there. We all of a sudden put a pause, right? And we brought down a svara, we brought down a pasuk, how you're not supposed to change something, even though you changed something wrong once, don't change everything. It's like a recipe. If your cook, right, your chef came and he already made a little mistake at the beginning, don't tell him, listen, you made a mistake at the beginning, now change everything. No. Keep everything on target, right? Okay, for that little tiny thing, maybe we could try to find a little tiny way to fix up a little bit of what he did. But keep everything else the same. The second, if you're just going to, no, listen, I messed up at the step A, so now B, C, D, E, I also, no, you didn't do the recipe then. It's a completely different thing, right? You're not allowed to do that. Fine. We brought down Rabbi Shimon. And we said our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Shimon. And we brought down the Braita. And the Braita said Mefurash, it's going to be Yitzhak Chovah for the Baalim. The Gemara now comes in and he says, how do we start all this? We started this because there was a stira in Rabbi Shimon. Right now, we just saw that stira, right? Because of the stira in Rabbi Shimon, there was three different answers. Answer number one was Ravashi, right? That he wanted to make a difference between the category and the subcategory, if you remember, to do with chotem, not chotem, machvat, mancheshet, kikim, or minchat machvat, minchat mancheshet, right? The categories, subcategories. The answer of Rabba, shinui kodesh and shinui balim, whether you change from one thing to another thing, or from one owner to another owner, right? And the third one was going to be Rava. Rava was going to be, if it's for one mincha to another mincha, it's good. If it's going to be from a mincha to a zevachim, to a korban of an animal, it's not good. The Gemara now brings down the stira. So the Gemara says, Verami de Rabbi Shimon, or the Rabbi Shimon, we're bringing down the stira of Rabbi Shimon. What was the stira of Rabbi Shimon? Rabbi Shimon comes and he tells you that sometimes it's going to be like a chatat, sometimes it's going to be like an asham. So you see from here, right, that what? That this Braita is telling you that Rabbi Shimon does hold that when it's not going to be lishma, it's pogem, the mincha, that it's not going to be ole lebe'alim, right? So it says that it's not going to be ole lebe'alim, and it's going to be pasul. Here it says, ma asham kasher ve'eno meratzeh. One more time. What's the stira of Rabbi Shimon? Rabbi Shimon, on the previous page, when we said our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Shimon, why? Rabbi Shimon says, you yotzei chovah the be'alim. Correct or not? You yotzei chovah. Here I just told you, I have a hekesh. The mincha is like the chatat and the asham. What does that mean? Certain ones are like a chatat, certain ones are like the asham. The chatat, it's pasul legamre. So minchat chote, it's pasul legamre. And therefore, if you do the minchat chote shelo lishma, so it's pasul legamre like the chatat. But if you did a minchat nedava shelo lishma, it's kosher like the asham, but it's not meratzeh. What do you mean it's not meratzeh? You told me that according to Shittat Rabbi Shimon, it is meratzeh. The owners are yotzei dechovah as well. That's the stira in Rabbi Shimon. Now we just saw the stira of Rabbi Shimon. We saw the first answer. Rabba. Amar Rabba. Rabba says, La kashia, it's not a question. Kan b'shinui kodesh, kan b'shinui be'alim. That was the first answer that we saw before. So now what we did is that Ki'ilu, the Gemara jumped before even seeing the stira. Now you saw the stira. Now you have the first answer. This is the answer of Rabba. Amaleh Abaye. Abaye comes and he asks, Michti machshava de pasal rachamana hekeshahi? He says, when the Torah came and made pasul, the korban mincha, because of a machshava of shinui, right? So he comes and he says, right, we're learning it from the hekesh, right? He says, mali shinui kodesh, mali shinui be'alim. He says, what is it going to help me of shinui kodesh or shinui be'alim? He says, in any case, right, the mincha needs to be pasul. Okay? Right? He says, I don't understand what's the difference. He says, what's the difference between shinui kodesh or shinui be'alim? He says, at the end of the day, right, when the Torah comes and it made the sekesh, right, what's the connection? Right? What's the connection now between shinui kodesh and shinui be'alim? Okay? The Torah came and it said that it's going to be, we learn it from a hekesh. If you learn it from a hekesh, kamarnu, that's it. There's a difference between shinui kodesh, shinui ba'alim. Where do you see that? So Amaleh, so Rabba answers him, Ma'aseh mochechim. The actions are going to be mochiach. The Ka'amar Rabbi Shimon, but Rabbi Shimon says, Svarahi. Right? It's a svara. Right? What does that mean? The Rabbi Shimon darish tama dikra. Because Rabbi Shimon was doresh the reasoning of the pasuk. Machshava de lo minkera pasar rachmana. He says, when you have a machshava which is not nikar, right, that's sheker, so for example, shinui ba'alim, that's when the Torah makes it pasul. But machshava de minkera, right, but when it's nikar that it's sheker, right, lo pasal rachmana. The Torah did not make it pasul. Meaning he made a logic, and he said like this. What is the logic? He says like this. When I see something that's sheker, right, and that's what he says, machshava de lo minkera. It's not nikar. Why is it not nikar that it's sheker? So when I have shinui ba'alim, do I see anything different? I don't see anything different. If I was bringing it for John Paul, or bringing it from Tomer, or bringing it from Ronen, right, or Ronen Kaful Stein, right, or whichever one that it is it nikar? There's nothing nikar. It's not written anywhere. This korban is for Tomer. It's not written. That's something which is basically going to be machshava de lo minkera. which means it's not nikar that it's sheker. There was a sheker here because I was bringing it for Tomer instead of John Paul, or John Paul instead of for Tomer, or instead of that. There is something of sheker there, but it's not nikar. So only in that case does the Torah prohibit it. However, though, machshevet de minkera, which is basically going to be machshava, which is nikar, right? Lo pasar lachmana. Torah does not come and posel. Why? Because when I come and I'm going to say it's going to be as a marcheshet, and then you come and you say that you see that you're doing it as a machavat. So it's nikar, the sheker. The sheker is there. You see it. The ma'asim, the actions, what you're doing is going to be nikar. So because of that, that's what a Rabbi answers, and he says there's a difference between, right, that we said that to do the shinui kodesh and shinui baalim. It's a svara, right? Because if you're going to tell me that it's a hekesh, what do I care now the difference between shinui kodesh and shinui baalim? So he says, no, you're right. There is a hekesh, but it's also svara. The svara is there, and the logic is that if it's nikar the sheker, the Torah does not disqualify it. Because it's like Ki'ilu, I'm going to tell you right now, right? I'm going to tell you something, and you see right now that it's for sure that I'm just lying what I'm saying because I have it there. You know that I didn't really mean it. I said it, but it didn't really mean it because you're doing the exact same thing right there. But if I come and I have it, and then you don't nikar anything, so that's a real sheker. That's 100% sheker. Okay? Fine.
If somebody brings
So Ela Me'ata, so it comes and he says, Olata of Shemalka, right? We're talking about right now the Olata of Shemalka Lemala. What does that mean? They did the Melika above, okay? Mishum Chatata of, because of Chatata of, right? Teratzeh. So what happens is, you have Olata of, right? Where is the Olata of supposed to be done? Right? You did the Melika on the top, right? But you thought as Chatata of. Right? It should be tiratzeh. Why? Maaseh mochichin aleh olata ofi. What's olata of? Lemala. Very good. You are lemala. You did the melika lemala, but you thought as a chatata of, which is supposed to be lemata. But it doesn't. But again, but the action is showing you that it's false. So that means even though you had the thought of a chatata of, which should be lemata, if the maaseh is mochiach that you're doing it for the olah, it should be kosher. It should be miratzeh. The chatata of, if it's going to be chatata of, lemata vivile. He should have done it on the bottom. So answers the Gemara, atu chatata of lemala mileta. He says, what? You cannot do the chatata of on the top. The melika, you could do the melika above. Hamar more melika b'chol makom b'mizbeach kashra. The melika you could do anywhere. Meaning there's no halakha that the melika has to be done on the bottom. The melika could be done anywhere. The difference is going to be whether it's going to be the mitzuy adam or the zrikat adam. That lamala there, yes, but not the melika. Second question, עולת העוף שמצד דמה למעלה, לשם חטאת העוף. תרצה, מעשה המוחי אליה, עולת האופי. תהי חטאת האופי למטה ויבלה, והזעה ויבלה. There's a difference between מיצוי הדם and הזעת הדם. You remember that the hazat adam is the sprinkling of the blood. Mitzui adam was when you put the animal against the wall to get out the blood. That's called mitzui adam. So there's going to be a difference between mitzui and the hazah, and there's going to be a difference also, if you remember, between how much of the neck of the animal do you have to cut. You remember that by the melika, by the chatat and the of, the one of the mitzui adam, you only had to do one siman. The one of the hazat adam, you have to do 2 simanim. Remember how many simanim of the bird do you have to actually cut off? So he says here, when you have this olata of, and you did the mitzui adam on the top, now what did you think? You thought of doing the chatata of. Now this is again, the chatata of should have been done on the bottom. So maaseh amuchim aleh, that it's olata of. Why? You did the mitzui adam, which was good, right? And you also did, right? You did lemala. So he says, because if it was going to be chatata of, you should have done it on the bottom, and you should have done haza'ah and not mitzui. So therefore, why are you going to? So Amri, they said, Dilma mitzui debatarazahu. Maybe it's talking about the mitzui after the haza'ah. That if you did mitzui, right, of the blood of the chatata of, anywhere on the mizbeach, it's going to be kosher. Okay, fine. Zat Hashem.